Welcome to Education Today. I'm John Zish from the Armstrong School District. Well, as you know, school is now back in session. More than 6,000 students in our district got their first taste of school on Tuesday, September 5th. Today we're continuing our behind-the-scenes look at the first Teacher in Service Day. In Service is a day of teacher training that brought nearly 500 Armstrong School District teachers to West Shamokin High School near Rural Valley, PA. It happened September 1st. Teachers were treated to an inspirational message from nationally renowned speaker Bill Sanders. Today our show will continue with Bill Sanders' powerful message to teachers. Let's take a look.
We're looking at TV saying if you get this, you can have a good day. If you buy this, you can have a good day. We're listening to our friends say what they say. Let me see the hands of all the brand new first-year teachers. Raise them up again this year. Raise them up high. Thank you. If you want to have a really good attitude this year and keep it strong, here's a secret. Stay out of the teacher's lounge. We did a survey a couple years ago, 5,000 teachers. I got the 4 most talked about topics in the teacher's lounge. What do you think the number 1 most talked about topic in the teacher's lounge was? What do you think? Students, what aspect of their behavior, positive or negative? Negative behavior of students, number 1. Number 2, what do you think second most talked about topic was? It happened to be administrators. And then I asked the other day, what aspect of their behavior, positive or negative? And one guy said negative, another guy said, is there any other? That wasn't here. I asked the superintendent the other day, how many teachers work for you? He said about half. No, he didn't. By the way, here's why you're here. I know how you got your job. Some of you got your job 4 months ago. Some of you got your job 30 years ago. Some 15. I know how you got your job. And I wasn't even there. It was either with a building principal or with a superintendent, whoever you talked to. It went like this. It wasn't a real long talk. You basically said something like this, with enthusiasm. I got these skills. I got these talents. Oh, I just want to touch some kids' lives. Let me help the kids. Just give me a chance to teach these kids. That's how you got your job. Now listen, you're not saying anything different. We're just talking about the attitude today. It's 15, 20 years later. You're saying the same thing. It's just the attitude. Yeah, where's those kids? Let me at them. Come on, bring them in. I'm ready this year. Those of you that didn't get it or didn't laugh, that's why we're here, ladies and gentlemen. See, some of you are really good in the academic part. And that's good. That's why you're here. But the kids that can't identify with that need some hope from you. I know about that. I was in the part of the class in high school that made the upper 50% possible. Those of you that didn't get it are in the same part of the class, just to let you know. All right. Now, number 5. Get enough sleep, eat healthy foods, exercise at least 15 minutes a day. You might want to put in the sidebar there, it's called the rule of 3. The rule of 3 goes like this. It's great with eating good. It's great with exercising. It's great with taking care of yourself by having a little time out time, a little quiet time for yourself. Here's how it works. You can miss 1 day with exercise, it's not going to matter too much. You can miss 1 day with eating good, it's not going to matter too much. You can even miss 2 days if you have a reading program or a quiet or a journaling program or an exercise program. It's not going to matter too much. But if you miss 3, it's easy to miss 4, and then a week. And then you realize it's been 2 months. The rule of 3 says, don't let 3 days go by without doing what's important to you. I love the rule of 3. The reason is I can't do anything on a daily basis. I know you haven't noticed this, but I just happen to have ADD. Usually there's at least 5 teachers you can hear him. I knew that 5 minutes when he was in here. He doesn't have a plan. He has no idea where he's going. If it wasn't for that handout, he wouldn't know where he was. And you know what? You're right. Guess what? Every day, do what's important to you. Next, develop an attitude of gratitude. One of the pages in this handout we're going to leave not to get to today, but it's for you to fill out. And one of the things for you to fill out are 10 things you're thankful for. Another thing for you to fill out is 10 things you love about your school. Another thing for you to write down are 10 things that you've achieved, their successes. You see, blessings are different than successes, okay? Now, we didn't take the handout pledge, but you're not allowed to look ahead. Becoming the center of peace. I really debated whether to put this in. I'm going to tell you why I did. 5 years ago, my daughter Emily, she was the easy one. How many of you are thankful for the easy one? How many of you have a strong-willed child? Have you ever noticed that when there's a strong-willed child and there's two parents involved, one parent goes crazy, the other one just chuckles a lot? Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. I married a chuckler. Guess what? My strong-willed child, my hardest to deal child, and your hardest to deal with child, and your hardest to deal with student is your greatest blessing this year. You know why? Number one is job security. I'm telling you, the kid that causes the most trouble, you ought to see him on Monday morning. I know you're dreading seeing him come in, but it's Monday morning. Without those kids, they don't need you. Robots could do this if they weren't for those kids. You better go up to those kids and you say, good to see you back again, baby. Listen, you're still up to your old stuff, aren't you? Okay, the hair's looking good and everything. Listen, don't let up. Keep with your same stuff, man. Keep going because I need this job. Okay, now don't lighten up on me. I mean, you know, that's job security. I picked on the wrong guy. He's going to beat me up when I leave here today. My daughter came home, Emily. She's the easy one, 1 week after graduation, and she told me she was pregnant. I write the books to keep kids from being pregnant. I write the books for parents to be good parents so their kids won't get pregnant. This ain't supposed to happen to me. I am so glad that for 25 years I've been telling dads, if your daughter ever says, I'm pregnant, you wrap your arms around her. You tell her you love her. You act like you mean it when you say it's going to be okay. And I've always said, I can't imagine. But if it ever happens, say that. I'm so glad I did, ladies and gentlemen. It was my finest moment. I don't have many fine moments as far as my kids go, as far as like when they're in trouble. You know, I'm smooth when they're sleeping. I'm going to write another parent book. Who'd like to help me with maybe a contributing chapter? It's going to be called, I'd Be a Perfect Parent If It Wasn't for My Kids. Anybody want to help? Guess what? It's only the troubled times with my kids that I've grown and changed. And I'm so glad I wrapped my arms around her because I realized later I saved a life. Hers. I've also found out since that I saved another one. Mine. And an old man told me recently, you saved a third because little Hayden was born 4 years ago. And he's the joy of my life. I still had one major problem. I wanted to kill her boyfriend. How many of you will agree that if you like to travel around the country and eat ice cream and just go speak to different people and just, have fun and drive on roads that are fun, and the roads around here aren't necessarily fun at all. I don't have a clue where we're at, but I'm here. I don't know if I'll ever make it back to the highway. But anyway, how many of you know? They name schools out here by the county. There are no towns. We don't know where we are. But anyway, it's a wonderful thing. Your relatives, where are you working? I don't know. I was there, and the people were there, and they all seemed nice, but I was a Twilight Zone thing. I'm supposed to be back on Tuesday, and God help me get back to that school. And I'll tell you something else. If you don't, a lot of places you can just, you can drive on highways in Michigan and kind of have what we call hypnotic, and just kind of go for miles and wonder what happened. You can't go for 2 seconds. You will die if you don't stare at the road in front of you. And you know what? And this is what life is like, but it just hit me, folks. Because right in the midst of all the laughter, some of you are aching right now. Because just a few days ago, one of your young people did just that. And he's gone. Folks, I want this to be a fun year for you. But I want you to tune in to kids' needs in the midst of whatever's going on. I did have a problem. I felt it was just his fault. I wanted to kill him. I got cured of that 3 days later. I was in Denver. My friend Darrell Scott was there. His daughter, Rachel, was the first girl to die at Columbine. I said, Daryl, I could use some prayers. He said, what's up? I can see it on your face. I said, our daughter, Emily, just told us she's pregnant. He changed my life. He said, Bill, I'd give anything for a pregnant daughter. Anything. You know how lucky you are, Bill? You get to be with her when she needs you the most. If I could have been with Rachel while she was dying on those steps at Columbine, even if I couldn't have saved her life, if I could have just held her for 20 seconds, it would have been the greatest honor of my life. And that day, I said, I replace my hate with love, because somehow you've taken it away. And I didn't know how it could be taken away, but it was, and I am very thankful for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you're going through, but I know this. We're still here, and we got a chance to make a difference. I met a man just a week ago in another Pennsylvania town, in another Pennsylvania school, and he told me how a few years ago the worst day of his existence happened when he didn't know it. He came over the hill and hit and killed a student. And for 6 years he has to go by that cross. And for 6 years he goes into the school and he can see the kids turning. He knows what they're saying. That's the guy that killed my friend. And he said, Bill, how can I get through this? I said, you are. You're living proof. You didn't have to run away from your family, become an alcoholic. You didn't give up everything and ruin your own kids. You are proving that you're sticking it out, baby. You won't get the accolades now, but someday people will say, he stuck it out. It was an accident. He said, that family saved my life, Bill, when they called me the night of the funeral and said it was an accident. Please don't blame yourself. Wow. Look for the good in everything that's happening, folks. This will be a great year. If you focus on the other, you'll get stuck. Become a center of peace. Here's what I learned through that. Accept the fact that trouble is bound to come your way. Have you ever realized that we expect trouble to come with our car? We expect trouble to come with our computer? But we don't expect trouble to come with our kids. If you want to be the center of peace, here's how you can tell if you're the center of peace. Some people are not the center of peace. Some people are. I married a peaceful woman. I figured it was her responsibility to keep peace. After all, she was good at it. You can tell if you're the center of peace or not. Here's how you can tell. Are people glad when you come into the room, or are they glad when you leave the room? Number 2, accept disturbing traits in others. Accept disturbing traits in others. Some of you have a staff member in the classroom next to you. You've been working side by side for 20 years. They've been getting under your skin. Accept it. They're accepting yours. There's a little ditty that goes like this. Up above with those we love, now that will be glory. But down below with those we know, now that's a different story. Accept the disturbing traits of others if you want to be a center of peace. Number 3, work at being free from fear or worry. Here's a great acrostic for fear, F-E-A-R. Whether it's public speaking or fear of writing a note to a parent saying that their child should be proud of themselves. Maybe that's awkward to you. Maybe you're fearful to approach a child and say, I got a gut feeling that something's going on in your life. What is it, son? A good acrostic for fear, F-E-A-R, is false evidence appearing real, or in your case, false education appearing real. Most people are afraid of public speaking because they've heard it. It's just false evidence appearing real. No one's going to throw anything at you. I want you to work at being free from worry, free from fear. Number 4, stop demanding that others be the center of peace. Number 5, you can't make the weaknesses and troubles of family members disappear. Number 6, life will test you. 7, yesterday's preparations are no good today. Now with the rule of 3, they actually are a little bit good today. But you have to have preparations every day. If you want to be strong, exercise every day, eat right every day, be kind every day. Write down a list of your blessings every day. We should all be outside finding reasons to be thankful. Number 8, only fill yourself with healthy stuff. I'm talking food, I'm talking movies, I'm talking music. If your kids are over 8 years old, I'm going to challenge you to do what I did. It ruined my life, and I'm basically here to ruin yours, so here's what happened. At 8 years old, I could not convince my son that the fuzz buster in my car had to do with Martians. That was the day I had to get rid of it. He's a gadget kid. You know what? It was the greatest thing I ever did. 9/11 was the day that most of your teenagers learned that firemen are heroes. My kids learned it that day because every time we ever heard a siren, we did a little thing. Who's going to pray now? No matter which kid it was. I'll do it, Dad. Okay. Simple prayer, no matter where we are, whenever we heard a siren. Dear God, please help the firemen, the policemen, or the paramedic, and the people that they're helping. Guess what? 9/11 is when most teenagers realize firemen and paramedics and policemen, they're on our side. But if they say you and I with a fuzzbuster, guess what? It's hard to justify. Next, like I told you, my job here is to ruin your life too. Number 9, don't expect applause from others. And if you're having a tough time with your strong-willed child, here's a tough one. I do not mean to add pain to this, so I apologize ahead of time, but I'm going to do it for the good. It's number 10. It's a very healthy thing to do. Picture your child dead and gone. Here's why. If even that student that gives you a heartache every day and challenges you up and down, we're gone because of death, especially your own, I know exactly what you'd do after the funeral. If you could get 5 more minutes with that child, I've been asking this for 25 years. I've never heard anything else. I know one thing that you would do, one action, give them a hug. I've never heard one parent say, if I could just have them back one time, I'd tell them how their messy room bothers me. It wouldn't matter. Guess what else? I know what you'd say. Most of the time we'd say, first of all, I'm sorry. But we'd always say, I love you. Period. End. Picture that when your child is ruining your life. They're the only person in this world getting you to change where you need to change. And give up these rights. I had to be proud of your children. It's not a right, it's a privilege. If they do something that makes you proud, enjoy it, but don't demand it. Otherwise, you'll never be the center of peace. You'll never have peace inside. Number 2, give up the right to possess your children. We don't own them. They're on loan. A teacher the other day gave me a beautiful sentence. She said, our students are a gift we give to the world in a time we will not see. And that's what we're giving is the world a gift that we won't see. And that's what our students are. Number 4, to have joy in your child. It's a privilege, ladies and gentlemen, not a right. Number 3, don't have joy. Number 4, to have tranquility at home. How many of you knew that if you were going to have children, you had to give up tranquility at home? Raise your hands. How many of you knew if you were going to be a classroom teacher that tranquility was not going to be a part of your day? Raise your hands. Now maybe it is if you can work together as a team. Let's turn the page. Most of this handout, the last 5 pages are for you. This is what I want to wrap up with this morning. This right here. The 7 needs of every student. Number 1, to be loved. They need to be loved. You know how kids spell love? T-I-M-E. You spend time with them, they know you love them. You know what wait time is? We will wait for a pretty student. We will wait for a smart student, the studies show. We will, on the average, wait for girls 5 to 7 seconds for an answer. Boys, up to 2. When they're not dressed right, they don't smell right, don't have good hygiene, if we're pretty sure that they're not interested in our class, we won't even ask them. And all of a sudden, they live up to their role. They live up to their standard. How many of you have troublemakers? Don't raise your hands. There's no such thing as a troublemaker. There's kids having trouble making it, but no such thing as a troublemaker. And the moment you think you have a troublemaker and that person is labeled as the troublemaker, you've lost focus of who they can become, and you're staring at who they are. Dave's got an awesome program on bullying. We don't call them the bully. We call them the person bullying, because they're just the person bullying that day. They're not a bully. We don't want them to ever consider themselves a bully. They're just bullying that day. And by the way, you want to wipe out bullying in your schools? There's 3 groups every time there's a bullying situation. There's the bully, the bullied, and the bystanders. You teach the bystanders. We're always going to have bullies, kids that are having a bad day, passing on their pain. We're always going to have kids that seem weak in front of those kids. Here's what you teach is the bystanders. Teach the rest of your class. to go to that kid, the 3 that are there. We don't do that. Remember, our little motto is, everybody matters, every decision counts. Please don't bully. Now, that will not work usually, but this does. If that doesn't, don't do that. Remember, everybody matters, every decision counts. By the way, why don't you come and play with us? If that doesn't work, this does. We're going to tell if you do it again. It wipes it out, ladies and gentlemen. You know how many students have known about every school shooting and every school shooting in the last 20 years? But we haven't been approachable. I've studied every school shooting that there has been. If I missed one, I've missed one. But I've never yet seen one start in the classroom. Even teachers who are not effective teachers, they're just waiting for Friday, waiting for their retirement. They don't have school shootings start in the classroom. They start where you're not. You're not in the hallway. You're not making eye contact with the kids outside. You're not going up to kids looking at their body language and saying, "Can I help you?" We need you to. 7 needs. Number 2, to have a teacher who is consistent. Pleasant one day, in a mood the next. You don't have the right to do that, ladies and gentlemen. You know why? You're getting paid. I do not have the right this hour to talk about my headache if I had one. I'm getting paid. I'm trying to honor Dr. Kerr. And I will say this. I've been in a lot of schools. I've been doing this a long time. That was not just a thing of beauty, that standing ovation. That was well deserved. It is an honor to work for this man and do anything for this man, and I am serious about that. And to see you honor him was a beautiful thing. If you do that as a way of life for everybody, you should tell your students on Tuesday, when a kid asks a question and 3 or 4 others chuckle, you say, "That'll never happen in here again, because nobody's more important than anybody in this classroom, me or you. We need each other, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, by the way, there will be no laughter when somebody asks a question. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm going to show you why. Bob just took a chance and raised his hand. Give him a hand right now, people." And guess what you just did in the classroom? Every kid in there, they know it's a thing to do to make fun of people. Guess what you just did in your classroom the rest of this year, if you'll do this next week? You went like this to every kid. "Whew, wow, I'm safe in here. Man, if she's going to protect Skinny Billy or Dumb Larry, whew, I know I'm safe. Wow, one class, 1 hour a week where I'm safe. I don't have to live up to what I'm supposed to live up. Some kids, they got to live up to being the bully. They got to live up to being the smart aleck. You've made it safe, ladies and gentlemen, and if you don't do that, guess what? You will get no questions. There's a whole page in this handout. I want you to look at it later. It says, don't look at it now. It says, if you don't have a safe classroom for kids to raise their hands, here's why. The 7 needs of every student. Number 3, to be safe. To be safe. My daughter Emily went out for the volleyball team in 6th grade. She couldn't get the ball over the net, but she was safe. No kid laughed at her. Her coach made it safe. Other kids were doing overheads. She couldn't even get an underhanded over. The last month, she got all her underhands over, so much that she got pulled up to the 7th grade tournament just to serve. In 6th and 7th grade volleyball, if you get the ball over the net, there's like a 95% chance you'll get a point. And only because she was safe did she stick it out, and she's not athletic, but she has a great, great memory because a coach made it safe. Number 4, to be needed. My first day at college, I was with my friend. He got all his classes. Every time I got up there, the sign went down, section closed, class full. How many of you are a little bit ticked off knowing that life is not fair because kids can register online? If I were to ask you who has a harrowing experience about registration, I'm not going to ask, but just raise your hands if you know what I'm talking about registration. My buddy left after 3 hours. I'm all alone. I was following him through every class. Whatever you take, I'll take. And then he left. I had 1 credit hour. He had 16. So at least I made my first college decision on my own. I said, I'm quitting. I saw the door. I was headed to the door. I'll never forget. I felt like a puppy with my tail between my legs. I was so embarrassed. Everybody else looked like they knew what was happening. I knew nothing. That's going to be Tuesday. Look for kids that are scared on Tuesday, people. Help them. I was walking. This arm came around my shoulder. And a gentle voice of a man. I used to think 54 was old. How many of you thought anything in the 50s was old? How many of you, when you hear somebody say, I just turned 30, you want to smack them? I'm walking with him. He said, "What happened? What's wrong?" I said, "I'm quitting." He said, "Quitting what?" I said, "College." He said, "This isn't college, it's registration." I said, "I'm quitting registration." He took me in his room. He introduced himself as just a counselor. Many of you will say, "What do you do?" Somebody will say, "What do you do?" "Oh, I just teach over at the school." You have a chance to touch lives, ladies and gentlemen. You're not just in anything. You're a professional educator. Give yourselves a hand. You're doing the toughest job with the least amount of applause, touching more lives, leading into more professions than any other. He set me down, changed my life in 5 minutes. He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I've been out there every time the section closed, my buddy gets his. I didn't get mine." He said, "I know. I've been in education for 20 years. I've been watching you for 30 minutes. You're the most pitiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life." And I laughed too, and all of a sudden it wasn't the end of the world. And guess what? That's the gift of laughter that you give for kids. This too shall. They'll never know it if you don't teach them that this too shall. Then he said, "What classes did you want?" I said, "These." He showed me a beautiful piece of paper. It's called an ad slip. He said, "Write them down. Bring them in Tuesday." I go, "Just like that?" He goes, "Yes, the purpose of registration is to prove that we're bigger and tougher than you," and I think we did it. And then he said 4 words that changed my life. He said, "I need you here." I said, "What are you talking about?" "I was going to quit 5 minutes ago." He said, "You know how many kids get to that door before I get to them and they never come back? I need you here under one condition, that you do not forget what it was like to hurt just then. Because if you do, you will be no good to help anyone else." And ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kerr, mostly though, every parent in your district needs you here under one condition, that you don't forget what it was like to be embarrassed in 7th grade, that you don't forget what it was like to be tripped and laughed at in 3rd, to be mocked in 10th, to have a coach tell you you're no good, to have a teacher tell you you'll never make it in that college. How dare any of us say that? Ladies and gentlemen, with this microphone, with your teaching position, we have power to make and we have power to break our kids to the same degree. And when you're having a bad day, how dare you take it out on a kid who's vulnerable? You have not that right. And if you cannot look at a child and see potential, I'm going to ask you to please do me and everyone in this county a favor. Find something else to do, because our kids' lives are at stake.
Well, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed our journey through Armstrong School District's Teacher in Service. Bill Sanders comes to us through the National Character Education Foundation, with which the Armstrong School District has had a 3-year partnership. Please join us again next week for another look at the Armstrong School District. Visit our website for updated information about the district, and have a great week.